Welcome to the Tell Us Ellis podcast.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is Jamie at Tell Us Ellis, and continuing on with our Major League Baseball team previews today. So we've gone through 6 so far. We've got, 24 to go. This has been great for me. Again, huge baseball fan, and going through all these teams, learning about what's going on with them, looking at some of the transactions in the off season. I've learned a ton. It's helping me from a fantasy standpoint. It's helping me as I review spring training games. So really cool for me, who's a huge baseball fan. And it's even extra special today because I get to preview my Baltimore Orioles. Yes, 2 American League East teams today, the Tampa Bay Rays and the Baltimore Orioles. I actually had the Orioles first on my list, but I'm going to cover them second in this podcast, and I'll start with the Rays today. Before we get started, just a reminder, again, my PR element. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe. Click the subscribe button on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. In fact, just go into all 3 of those right now and click subscribe, and then any other podcast tools that you listen to. Just click subscribe, and then hopefully you enjoy these episodes. If you do, leave a comment and click like, and just let me know. I want to always improve these. I want to keep them relevant to you and help you out as hopefully a baseball fan. Follow me on social media as well at Tell Us Ellis HQ. That's on X, that's on Instagram, and then send me any questions, Jamie at tellusellis.com. So again, excited today to do teams number 7 and 8, and we will start with the Tampa Bay Rays. All right, let's get into this very interesting team, a team that finds ways to win despite maybe not having the resources in the past or not having the funding they could to buy a lot of bats and so forth. Just a remarkable franchise when you think about it. This is a team that back in 2021 won 100 games. They won 162, finished in first place in the East, and lost the American League Division Series 3-2 to Houston. To go to 2022, they finished 86 and 76, finished in third place, 13 games back, and lost the American League wild card to Cleveland 2-9. 2023, they win 99 games, 99 and 63, ended up in second place, 2 games back, and lost the American League wild card again, 2-0 to Texas. And then in 24, they started to sit back a little bit. They lost some players, both to injury, free agency, trades. They finished 2024 80 and 82 and finished in fourth place, 14 games back, failed to make the playoffs. And then in 2025, last season, they were 77 and 85. They finished in fourth place, 17 games back. If you hear that siren, it is the Tampa Bay Rays siren saying this year is all about the Rays. If you look at this team, look, they've struggled, right? Tampa Bay, they've struggled in the Tampa area. Stadium situation has been terrible, exacerbated by a hurricane that came through and required them to play in a minor league field last year. But even regardless, they have just drawn very poorly in Tampa. Forget 2021 because it was still a COVID year where some games had restricted attendance. But go to 2022, they only drew 1.1 million fans. 2023, a year in which they win 99 games, they only draw 1.4 million fans. Fell off in 2024 to 1.3 million. And then last year, again, bad situation, minor league ballpark, they draw 786,000. Like I said, they played at Tropicana Field in Tampa, which is a cavernous, enchanting ballpark. I've been there. It is like built out of concrete. It's like they poured this concrete dome. And when it was hit by a hurricane in 2024, it set them up to play at George Steinbrenner Field in Tampa in 2025. The good news is, 2 good things. Number one, they'll be back at the Trop in 2026. So that even though it's a bad stadium, at least they'll be back at a major league stadium. I guess you can call it a major league stadium. But the good news is that there's a new stadium effort out there. It's getting a lot of support with the governor and a lot of legislative bodies. It looks like this is going to happen. And if so, there should be a new stadium coming up here in the next few years, which kind of guarantees Tampa staying in Tampa. So really good. I'm not going to get into park factors with this team because it was 1 year George Steinbrenner Field. If you want to look at the trop, it's pretty neutral. Never goes above or below 2% variance in any given month as far as offense goes. So it's a dome stadium, so you would expect that. Let's talk about some of their personnel, starting with their manager, Kevin Cash. Guy's really respected. He's been there since 2015. He's won 2 division championships, an American League pennant. They've played in, 34 postseason games in his career as manager. They've gone 15-19. Again, kind of like Oakland. He's a really good manager in a really bad situation. So a lot to like there with Kevin Cash. From a general manager standpoint, they don't officially have a general manager. Eric Neander is their president of baseball operations, and he's the one really responsible for roster construction and player movement through the system. Everything kind of runs through Eric Neander. They have several assistant general managers, each with some general manager duties, so they spread it around a little bit of a different and unique approach. Again, why not try a little bit of everything if you're Tampa and in the situation you're in? So kind of a novel approach. From an ownership standpoint, this is big. Patrick Zalupski, who was a real estate developer in the area, he bought the team from Stuart Sternberg last year. Sternberg was not liked at all. Had a lot of issues. Wasn't certain he was going to keep the team in Tampa. Big stadium situation that kept getting delayed and delayed. So, wasn't very positive. I think Zalupski sounds like he's going to be much more fan oriented and engaging. And again, I think this is all good. I have a good friend, Rob Fox, who's a Tampa fan, and he's got to be excited about the future of this team. That's the future of the team. Now let's take a step back and look at the reality of where they are today. A lot of changes for this team, a lot of changes in the offseason. It starts with some trades that they made, and I'll talk about players they lost in these trades. They lost Brandon Lau. He's a second baseman. He is out in a trade, a 3-team trade with the Pirates and Astros. Last year, he batted .256 with 31 home runs and 83 RBI. So a big bat that they're losing. He had a .784 OPS. Josh Lowe, the outfielder, is also gone in a 3-team trade with the Angels and Reds. He's been a great enigma. Josh Lowe had this season where he batted .292 with 20 home runs, 83 RBIs, 32 stolen bases, and 835 OPS. The guy has not been able to stay healthy, which stinks. The last 2 years, he batted .220 and .241, and just has not lived up to what he could be. So they moved on from him in a trade, and so he is no longer on the team. They also traded Shane Baz to the Orioles. Baz 10-12 with a 4.87 ERA coming off of Tommy John surgery. He did pitch in 31 games last year and threw 166 in the third innings. Baz was a top prospect for this team. A little bit questionable why you would trade him given the team control and so forth that they had for him, but they decided to build up some minor league arms, and that's what this team does really well. It takes minor league arms, minor league players, and builds them up. So they decided to make that move. They had a few other trades. Cameron Meisner, outfielder, is no longer there. .213 hitter, 5 home runs, 22 RBIs, 8 stolen bases. Jake Mangum is an outfielder who was part of the 3-team trade with the Pirates and Astros. He was a .296 hitter, 3 home runs, 40 RBIs, and 27 stolen bases. And then they just lost some players to free agency. Pete Fairbanks, 4-5 with a .283 ERA, 16 the third innings, 59 strikeouts, and a 1.044 WHIP. So that's going to be a bullpen arm that they're going to need to replace. Mason Montgomery, actually, he was part of a three-team trade as well, and he's on his way out or is already out. Montgomery was only 1-3 with a 5.67 ERA, but he did pitch in 57 games. Adrian Hauser, starting pitcher, signed with the Giants, had a good year, 8-5 with a 3.31 ERA in 21 games. And he started all of those games, pitched to a 128 whip. And then Christopher Morel was a utility player who is now with the Marlins. Morel, 219, 11 home runs, 33 RBIs, 7 stolen bases. So that's a lot of players to lose, and it's not low-end talent. There's some really good players in there that they have to make up for. So what did they do? I like this move. They brought in Steven Matz. Matz kind of a starting pitcher, relief pitcher, swing guy, 5-2 with a 3.05 ERA, 76 and two-thirds innings, gave up or struck out 59 batters, pitched to a 1.096 whip. Matz has not thrown more than 105 innings since 2021, but he could be a good swing man, or maybe even, if you go with a three-man rotation in your, not three-man rotation, but you have that starter that comes out and pitches 3 innings and then throw somebody else in there for 3 innings. Like he would be a really good person to fill that role, as would Nick Martinez. I've been really high on Nick Martinez. He played that swing role for Cincinnati last year, 11-14 with a 4.45 ERA. He started 26 games, came out of the pen in 14 games. He pitched 165 and two-thirds innings. So two really good arms that, again, if you want to do that rotation by committee, those are two good arms that you could throw in there. They added some bats as well. Gavin Lux came over in that three-team trade with the Angels and Reds. Lux, a former top 10, maybe even top 5 prospect, 269 hitter, 5 home runs, 53 RBIs. He needs to improve upon that to show that he was worthy of that prospect ranking. OPS of only 724 last year. Cedric Mullins was signed. Mullins has just been brutal the last few years. His OPS the last 3 years, 690, 710, 721, actually 721 again last year. He does have 19 steals every year since 2021, but you're going to get a lot. You're not going to get a lot of on-base activity from Mullins. You could get some power and you'll get some speed, but not a lot of on-base activity. And then they signed Jacob Melton, an outfielder. They didn't sign him. He was part of a three-team trade with the Pirates and Astros, only a 157 hitter in limited action. So a lot of guys out, not as many guys in. Look, this is a team last year that finished 9th in average, 15th in OPS. That's not bad. They finished middle of the pack pitching, 15th in ERA, and actually 9th in WHIP. And then from a relief pitching standpoint, 12th in ERA and 6th in WHIP. So you look at those numbers and you say, that's not bad. Is that really a 77 win team? Feels like it might be something more than that. But then I want to go into the details. Let's start with their batting, their hitting. We mentioned Gavin Lux, who's going to come in and play second base. He gets on base at a nice clip, 350, but a 269 average, a 374 slugging. He needs to do more there, and I already said that. He was a former first-round pick of the Dodgers, 20th overall. Yandy Diaz will likely DH most of the time. Yandy batted 300 with 25 home runs last year. He's 800 plus OPS, gets on base at a 366 clip, nice slugging percentage of 482. He's a solid hitter in that lineup. Jonathan Aranda is by opening day, he'll be 28 years old. He'll likely get an opportunity at first base. Batted 316 with 14 home runs last year. Over 800 OPS. He was an amateur free agent signing out of Mexico way back in 2015, signed with Tampa, and now getting a chance to play on a regular basis. So he's worth keeping an eye on, even from a fantasy baseball standpoint, somebody you might not know a whole lot about, but keep an eye on him. Then you have Junior Caminero. This guy lit it up last year, and he's 22 years old and will only be 22 years old on opening day. The guy hit 45 home runs last year, and that was in 653 plate appearances, batted 264, 844 OPS, something like that, 846 OPS, seven stolen bases. This kid is for real and will be a cornerstone of this franchise for a long time. So you look at that and you feel pretty darn good about those first four hitters. But now you turn to Cedric Mullins, and I talked about him. And last year he batted 216 with a 299 OPS. It's not going to do it. Jake Fraley is going to play right field. 241 hitter, 6 home runs, 332 on base percentage. You like a little bit more than that from your outfielder. Taylor Walls, who actually got hurt the other day in spring training, he is set up to play shortstop if he's healthy. Only batted 220 last year, 4 home runs, 14 stolen bases, gets on base at a 280 clip. Not great. Chandler Simpson is a 25-year-old outfielder, batted 295 last year, no power to speak of, gets on base at a 326 clip, but he stole 44 bases. So you have something there. You just want to get this guy on base a little bit more. He was a second-round draft pick of the Rays back in 2022, 70th overall. So let's see if his second year he can do a little bit more to get on base. And then catching is Nick Fortes. 229 hitter, 5 home runs. He only had 242 plate appearances last year. He probably will spend time catching with Hunter Fiducia. Fiducia only batted 148 last year. So a little bit of weakness behind the plate there. On the bench, you've got Johnny DeLuca, 333 last year and very limited at bats. Ben Williamson batted 253, 1 home run, 295 plate appearances. He's an infielder, utility guy. So again, not a lot of depth here after you get past those first four guys. You do have guys like Chandler Simpson who could be exciting and electric, but we've talked about some teams like the Athletics, like the Blue Jays, like the Braves that have some really good offensive pieces, and you don't have that complete package here with Tampa. Now, as we move to the bullpen or to the starting rotation, Drew Rasmussen had a really, really good year last year. He pitched to a 276 ERA, 150 innings, only 116 hits. Doesn't strike out a ton of guys, struck out 127 batters, but definitely pitched like a top of the rotation arm. And, he'll be 30 on opening day. It'll be interesting to see if he can repeat his 2025. Ryan Pepio was a mixed bag last year. I would say more good than bad. 386 ERA, 167 and 2/3 innings, only 134 hits, and he struck out a batter an inning. There is some even further upside with him. Now he is 28 years old. Was a third-round pick of the Dodgers back in 2019. A lot of upside with him, and he could fill a number 2, number 3 starter really, really well. I talked about Steven Matz and Nick Martinez in this rotation. Are they going to be full-time starters? Are they going to be part of a bullpen by committee? We'll see what happens with them. And then the real wild card is Shane McClanahan. What's his injury status? He was their ace. How's he going to bounce back from surgery? A lot of unknowns there with McClanahan. So not a terrible rotation. You worry about the longevity of a Martinez and Matz, knowing that they've been kind of these bullpen and starting pitcher swing guys. So we'll have to see what happens there. From a bullpen standpoint, Edward Uceta is going to be one of their closing options. Between him, Griffin Jax, and Garrett Cleavinger, I think they're going to either do a bullpen by committee or they're going to pick one of those guys to be the closer. Uceta, 3.79 ERA last year, 76 innings, 62 hits, and 103 strikeouts, so really good numbers. Griffin Jax, 4.23 ERA, gives up about a hit an inning, but did strike out 99 in 66 innings. And then Garrett Cleavinger, 2.35 ERA last year, 61 1/3 innings, 40 hits, and 82 strikeouts. So 3 really good options there. If you pick one of them to close, the other 2 can be setup guys, and you're in pretty good shape. From a you know the middle of your bullpen standpoint, you've got Brian Baker. Uh, Baker pitched to a 4.06 ERA last year, 68 and two-thirds innings, 59 hits, 83 strikeouts. That's not bad. Mason Englert pitched to a 3.83 ERA, 44 and two-thirds innings, 43 hits, 44 strikeouts. Not bad. Steven Wilson, 3.42 ERA, 55 and a third innings, 50 hits, and 51 strikeouts. Not bad. Cole Sulser, I remember him from my old Oriole days, some dark days for the Orioles. Sulser only pitched in 22 and two-thirds innings last year, but had a 1.99 ERA, giving up a little less than a hit an inning and striking out a batter every inning. So really good numbers overall in the bullpen. I think, Yandres Gomez is likely to be a long man, could start a little bit, 5.17 ERA. I'm putting him in there in that bullpen now, but we'll see how spring training goes. This team has been bitten a little bit too, yes, by injury, but if anyone remembers Wander Franco was a can't miss prospect and was pretty damn good player. And he is on the restricted list, remains on the restricted list. I really don't think he'll play baseball again. Got into some issues with relations with a minor in the Dominican. And I honestly don't know where it stands, but he hasn't played in several years. And I just think his baseball career is probably over. And that really stinks for this Rays team. So let's talk about the Rays farm system now. Overall, this team has always ranked very high in their farm system. 2021, they were the number one farm system in baseball. 2022, they were second. 23, they were sixth. 24, they were seventh. 25, they were sixth, and now they're fifth. They added a bunch of prospects to their top 30 through trades and international signings, and that's given them a little more depth and prospect talent. Mentioned that Shane Baz deal to the Orioles. Well, part of that was to get back a quantity of arms and quality of arms. So let's talk about it a little bit. Let's dig into some of their top 30 players, players that are either in the top 100 in all of baseball or who could make an impact this year. It really starts with Brody Hopkins. He's a right-hand pitcher, 23 years old, 6'4", 200 pounds. He's their number one prospect. 37th overall in baseball. He started out at the College of Charleston, where he was an outfielder and then also pitched a little bit. And he transferred to Winthrop for the 23 season and just focused on pitching. And that is when his career kind of took off. He was wild as a college pitcher, but still had athleticism and a lot of really good stuff. And the Mariners ultimately drafted him in the 6th round that year. And then in July 24, he was sent to the Rays in return for the Randy Arozarena trade. So he's been now with the Tampa Bay Rays. The best way to describe him is he is on power all the time. He doesn't throw any pitch really under 88 miles an hour. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, one of the write-ups I read said that Jacob Mizorowski and Max Meyer were the only base MLB starters who averaged 87 miles an hour or harder on every pitch, and he would join that class. He's got a 96, 97 mile an hour four-seam fastball that can touch 100. He's got an 87 to 88 mile per hour curve, an 87 to 88 mile per hour sweeper. So, look, there's some risk here in that he's got some control issues. He's with the right organization for them to figure that out for him. And if he can develop and they can, really garner some control with him, he has every opportunity to be a top of the rotation starter. Like I said, he's 23 years old. He's approaching the time when he should get a look in Tampa, and it'll be interesting to see how that comes along. He is power personified. Their number 2 overall prospect and 64th overall in baseball is Theo Gillen, an outfielder, 20 years old, 6'2", 195 pounds. He was, for the 24 draft class, he was viewed as maybe the best pure hitter in that class. He did miss time with a shoulder injury. And the Rays, despite that, selected him overall with the 18th pick. He moved from shortstop to center field when he joined the Rays. Look, he's 20 years old. As a teenager, he was a very polished hitter, excellent plate coverage, not a ton of power, but he hits a lot of line drives and could hit a lot of doubles in the majors. He's got plus running, could steal 30 plus bases in the big leagues. Doesn't have a great arm. Again, I mentioned those shoulder injuries, and that's something to be a little bit wary of. But he does have a chance to be an impact regular in center field. Probably won't hit Tampa this year, still only 20 years old. But, his hit tool grades out at a 60. His fielding is a 60. His running is a 60. So, again, that's why he's one of the top 100 prospects in baseball. Another top 100 prospect is Carson Williams, a shortstop. He's 22 years old, 6'1", 180 pounds, 85th best prospect in baseball. Again, this is all according to Baseball America. He hit 20 home runs and stole 33 bases for Double-A Montgomery in 2024, but he still wasn't this finished product. And when he went to Triple-A in 25, he really struggled. Struck out 34% of the time, which was the second highest in the International League. He was called up by the Rays last year. He did get a chance to play in the majors. He hit 5 home runs in 32 games, but he struck out 42% of the time. And I think he's going to be given a shot this year, but he has got to cut down on those strikeouts. He is, given his struggles, he's probably more realistically projecting as a strong defensive outfielder who could hit enough home runs to fit the lineup somewhere. Not towards the top of the lineup, though, probably towards the bottom. They have to utilize his well above average speed in some way. He struggles with the bottom of the strike zone, and he struggles with especially changeups. He swings over the top of them all the time. He, again, projects as a really good defender, but his bat is a question mark. He could be anything from a star player that plays every day to a complete bust, but that upside is still there. See what he does this year. He could fall out of the top 100, or he could play every day in Tampa. We'll see. The other player I want to talk about is Jacob Melton. Melton is the 70th overall prospect in baseball, 4th overall for the Rays. He's an outfielder, 25 years old, 6'3", 208 pounds. He played for Oregon State and All-American honors, won the Pac-12 College Player of the Year in 2022. The Astros selected him in the second round of the 22 draft and signed him for just under $1 million. He missed some time over the first 6 weeks of the season in 2025 with upper back discomfort, kind of derailed his career a little bit. But he did return in May and actually got a call up by the Astros. Sprained his ankle, so went back down on the disabled list, got called back up, and was kind of all over the place when he played. Not a great season, but again, it was sporadic, and he was on the roster, off the roster, hurt, healthy. Ultimately, the Astros traded him to the Rays in a 3-team trade that brought Michael Burrows to Houston from the Pirates. He was part of that trade. So now he's in the Rays organization. He's got an unusual swing, an unusual bat path, above average contact skills. It didn't really show in his time in the majors. He struggled a lot, but his minor league career, really good contact skills. He's adjusted. It's taken him time to adjust at each level. So maybe his shorter stint in the majors was more of an adjustment period. He does project as an average hitter and shows plus raw power, really good exit velocities. I mean, his 90th percentile exit velocity is 107.7, which puts him very far at the top and also might show that there's more power to come. He's been a successful base stealer. He can steal 20 or more bases, has an average arm. So I think you'll see him in Tampa a lot this year and see what he does. Hopefully he can adjust and be an impact player in Tampa. Now I want to talk about one final player, and that's right-hand pitcher T.J. Nichols. He's 23 years old, 6'5", 189 pounds, pitched at Arizona and bounced between the rotation and the bullpen. had really exceptional stuff, struggled with consistency, lots of control issues, but he had enough stuff that he was the sixth round pick for the Rays in 2023. Again, really good organization at helping pitchers find themselves. And, um, you know, he walked 10% of the batters he faced in college, and then he dropped that to 6% in high A and double A ball in 2025. So again, a lot of adjustments being made here. 68% strike percentage, ranked 10th among all minor league pitchers with 100 innings pitched. So he's making improvements. He does throw the ball in the zone a lot, which leads to home runs. He gave up 21 home runs in 2025, but he does have a plus fastball, plus slider. Um, Needs to improve upon his changeup a little bit, but he's made really big strides in the last 2 years. He projects as a mid-rotation starter. Probably needs a little more time, double A and triple A, but wouldn't be shocked if you saw him at some point in Tampa in 2026. I want to turn to the international market as well. This Rays team did a really good job in the January international recruiting class. They signed two top 50 players. One was the number 11 overall prospect in the international class, Victor Valdez. He was signed for $3.5 million. He's a shortstop out of the Dominican Republic, 17 years old, 6'1", 186 pounds. Seems to be an exciting player. Again, 17 years old, you never know what these kids are going to develop to be, but rated as the 11th best international prospect. And then Fabricio Blanco is another shortstop they signed for $1 million. He's the 44th best prospect in the international class. He is out of Venezuela, again, 17 years old, 5'11", 161, still has some growing to do clearly, but two really good pickups in this class for the Rays. You see them always again at the top of this list of farm system rankings, and they're at it again. So really good stuff. I always like to look at, if the Rays fall out of contention, do they have options to trade away and maybe build this minor league system up more? I think they really do. I'll start with Nick Martinez. Talked about him. He's this swing guy. He signed for $9 million in 2026 with a $20 million mutual option for 27. Feels like that's a tradable asset if he has a good year. Yandy Diaz is another guy, could be a really good trade option. Now, I like Yandy a lot, and his 300 average, 366 on base percentage, and 25 home runs. He is 34 years old. He'll finish the year 35 years old. So is there an opportunity there to part with him? He's signed for $12 million in 2026, and there's a $10 million club option in 27. Feels like he could be a good tradable asset. Two more players, Gavin Lux, he would have to really do a lot, I think, to be a tradable asset in 26. He's only making $5.25 million, then he's a free agent after this year. But let's say he lives up to his prospect expectations. Do you keep him? Do you try to re-sign him, or do you trade him? Drew Rasmussen is another pitcher who, again, had a really good 2025 campaign. If he builds on that in 26, do you move his contract, especially with some of these younger arms that might be able to come up and replace him? He signed for $5.75 million this year, and then there's an $8 million club option for 27. So that's another asset. Should I say this? I don't know if I should say this. I will. Cedric Mullins could be another tradable option. I don't know what he would garner, but let's say he is a 2020 guy and can get his average up to 250, 260. He's got a $7 million contract for 26, a $10 million mutual option for 27. Maybe there's an opportunity to trade him should things go south. So that's front to back, top to bottom, your Tampa Bay Rays for 2026. Okay, I'm not going to try to be this hometown guy that does more work on the Orioles than any other team I'm going over. I'm going to try to be independent and remove myself as a fan and just talk facts. Okay, so the Orioles. You go back to 2021, they won 52 games, 52 and 110. So those teams that are in that area right now, I feel for you. It stinks, but there is hope. Between 2021 and 2022, the Orioles improved by 31 games. They went from 52 and 110 to 83 and 79 in 2022, which was remarkable. And maybe even more remarkable is they improved upon that again in 23, going from 83 wins to 101 wins. 101 and 61, they won the division. Remarkable turnaround. They fell back in 24 to 91 wins. Still playoff team, second place, finished 3 games back. And then last year, the bottom fell out. They win 75 games. Cost manager Brandon Hyde his job. They finished in fifth place, 19 games out. Going back to that 23 season, so really exciting season, 101 wins. They go to the American League Division Series, and whether it was youth or not having the right roster for a playoff run, they end up losing 3 games to none to Texas and are out of the playoffs. 2024, they make the playoffs again, go to the wild card round and lose 2 games to none to Kansas City. They've actually lost 10 postseason games in a row. If you go back to um, 2017, I believe it was. Actually, I think it even goes back further than that. I think it goes back to 2015 or 14. They have had a really tough time in the postseason. So, looking specifically at last year, they started the season 15 and 32, brutal start. They were 2 and 14 from May 3rd to May 20th. They did finish 60 and 55 in their last 115 games, so they did see some improvement. And we've got to see what this young team is in 2026. New manager this year, Craig Albernaz. He's an up and comer. He was an associate manager and bench coach with the Cleveland Guardians. Known as a really strong communicator, a player first leader, engaging personality. The media gave the Orioles high marks for this hire, so sounds really good. He does take over for Brandon Hyde, and then Tony Mansolino was an interim manager last year. Hyde was 421 wins and 492 losses for the Orioles. Some of that looks uglier than probably it is because of those really bad seasons when they were just a bad team. So, Hyde did win one division championship, but he was 0-5 in the postseason. General manager is Mike Elias. He's pretty highly regarded as a good drafter and a good organization builder. He won the executive of the year in 2023. Big use of analytics in Baltimore. Criticized though for how he handles pitching, especially last year. They lost Corbin Burns. They had some injuries, and they didn't really have a good rotation out of the gates last year, and some are very critical of Mike Elias for that. Ownership is very supportive of whatever we need to do to win. David Rubenstein is co-founder and co-chairman of private equity firm the Carlyle Group. He's very civic oriented, born in Baltimore, very positive and stabilizing force after the many years under the Angelos regime. He doesn't meddle in the team, but is very supportive of spending and doing what we need to do in Baltimore to win. Look, I said we, that's wrong. Doing what they need to do in Baltimore to win. So, again, let's see where this team goes.
Okay, so let's talk about the Oriole Park at Camden Yards, where the Orioles play, and they've done a lot of changes with this park over the last 2 years. First, they moved the left field fence way back. It was a hitter's ballpark, and they moved it way back in left field, and it really reduced the hitting, reduced the home runs, and it was too aggressive. So last year they moved the fence back in. And I'm not going to go into all the details about how things change month to month because it's hard to tell based on how they moved the fence and so forth. What I will say is when they moved it back in last year, runs were up 2% and home runs were up 17%. So it feels like it's getting back to a better way to play. And we'll see how that stands out in 2026. So now let's get into the team and the changes that happened since last season. And I'm going to start with some trades they made. The Orioles, in kind of a controversial move to fans, traded Grayson Rodriguez, one of their prized young prospects for a long time. He didn't pitch in 2025, but they traded him in the offseason to the Angels. And the reason it struck fans is, Grayson Rodriguez was under team control for a period of time yet. So when you give up a controllable player like that, it's just, you better get a good return. Now, again, he was injured, and maybe they thought that they needed to get something out of him while they could. They ended up getting Taylor Ward, who's an outfielder with a ton of power. He hit 36 home runs, 103 RBIs, 792 OPS last year. So they do get power. Now, he only batted 228 last year. So, they get some power, they get some offensive production, give up a young pitcher in Grayson Rodriguez. We'll see how he does with the Angels. I kind of thought highly of some of the Angels' moves this offseason. They also made a trade with the Diamondbacks. They traded Cade Stroud, one of their relief pitchers, who was a good young player, but with a 171 ERA last year, 26 in the third innings. He struck out 24 batters and pitched to a 1.101 whip. With Stroud, it seemed like a lot to give up, and what they get back from that is Blaze Alexander, a shortstop, 230 hitter, 7 home runs, 28 RBIs, just a 706 OPS. You may question that move. I think at the time the Orioles were looking for infield depth, but literally a day later, Jackson Holliday breaks his hamate bone and is going to be out probably the first month of the season. So maybe this looks like a genius move if you're the Orioles. Maybe they just didn't have confidence that Stroud could replicate his 2025 season. The Orioles also lost a couple of players to free agency. Jorge Mateo, who's been with the team for a while, signed with the Braves. Mateo, hurt last season, only batted 177, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 15 stolen bases. They also lost Tomoyuki Sugano, who had a nice year for the Orioles, 10-10 with a 4.64 ERA. I say nice year because he pitched 157 innings and did get him 10 wins. He signs with the Rockies, and then Gary Sanchez, backup catcher, signs with the Brewers. Sanchez did a decent job last year, 231, 5 home runs, 24 RBIs in backup action. 715 was his OPS. So that's who they lost. Who did they pick up? Well, it started with the signing of a closer, Ryan Helsley, relief pitcher, 3-4, 4.50 ERA last year. He did have 21 saves. Last year seemed like an off year for him. He's been a really good closer in the past, so he is going to be penciled in as that closer for the Orioles in 2026. The Orioles also made a trade that I didn't talk about earlier because they didn't give up major league talent. They gave up some key minor league talent to get Shane Baz, starting pitcher with the Devil Rays. Baz, a year removed from Tommy John, last year was his first full year after Tommy John, went 10-12 with a 4.87 ERA, 66 in the third innings. He struck out 176 batters, which is promising. I've always liked Baz. He was a top prospect, went down with Tommy John surgery, but if he can perform well, this is a good get for the Orioles. I feel like he could be near the top of the rotation by the end of the year. Even though he pitched to a 4.87 ERA, his underlying stats were actually pretty good, so I'm excited to see that. The big splash this offseason was the addition of Pete Alonso. The Orioles, and showing that they're willing to go out and spend money on a big free agent. Alonso, 272 last year, 38 home runs, 126 RBIs, and 871 OPS. Even more than the numbers, he adds veteran leadership to this team. I think it's a huge get for the Orioles, and really like the addition of Alonso. The Orioles also traded for Andrew Kittredge, relief pitcher, 4-3 with a 3.40 ERA. And last year he was with the Cubs, so a nice pickup there. The Orioles re-signed Zach Eflin, who had a tough year with the Orioles last year, had a bunch of injuries. The Orioles hoping that he can come back and be more like 2024 form, and if he can fill out the back end of that rotation really well. Fans were a little worried that this was their answer to that fifth starter, but then Mike Elias went out and signed Chris Bassett from the Blue Jays. Bassett 11-9 last year, 3.96 ERA, 170 in a third innings. He struck out 166 batters. So, you're adding a Baz to that rotation, a Bassett to that rotation, an Eflin to that rotation. We talked about Helsley from a closer standpoint. Andrew Kittredge from a bullpen standpoint. Albert Suarez signed a minor league deal with this team. He was in very limited action in 25, but pretty good in 24 for the Orioles. So some nice pickups there. They also signed Leody Taveras, backup outfielder, 205, 3 homers, 17 RBIs. 9 stolen bases. But look, some really nice pickups here. I think this team is improved from last year. So let's dig into their hitting a little bit more. And I'll start by saying this. This team, like I said, they only won 75 games last year. And when you look at their stats, offensively, they were 24th in average, 21st in OPS. Starting pitching was 24th in ERA, 21st in WHIP. Bullpen was 25th in ERA, 28th in WHIP. You understand why they underperformed last year. So now let's look at this lineup first. And you start, I talked about adding Taylor Ward. He'll probably play left field on a pretty regular basis. Again, lots of power, 36 home runs. Doesn't get on base a lot, 317 on base percentage. Slugging percentage, 475 though. See if he can get his average up a little bit, but keep the power. It could be a really nice addition. I could see him playing, sharing time with Tyler O'Neill, although O'Neill might be more in right field. O'Neill's still on this team. Injuries define him, but if he could stay healthy and be a big piece of this team, O'Neill a couple years ago had a great season in Boston. So between those two, I kind of like what we have. Again, I shouldn't say we. I should say I like what the Orioles have. You've got Gunnar Henderson at shortstop. Some would say he underperformed last year. He started the year on the IL. He battled a shoulder injury all year. Batted .274, 17 home runs, 30 stolen bases. Could be a good comeback year for Gunnar at shortstop, and let's see where he goes. Could he battle for an MVP season? Talked about Alonso, the middle of the order bat that the Orioles have wanted and needed. 38 home runs last year. Great OPS, really like the move. One of the big X factors for the Orioles is going to be Adley Rutschman. He had a down year last year. He only batted .220, 9 home runs, only 365 plate appearances. Adley needs to figure it out. If it's injuries, hopefully he's over them. If it's something with his hitting, hopefully they fix it. But they need him to be the hitter that he was when he first came up. And if so, that'll be a big add for the Orioles. Colton Cowser right now is lined up to play center field, and boy, he has got to show something. He batted .196 last year, 16 home runs. He does have some pop, 14 stolen bases, but he only gets on base at a .269 clip. That is not acceptable. He has got to do better. This might be his last chance in Baltimore to do that. I mentioned Blaze Alexander, .230 hitter, 7 home runs. Blaze, with Jackson Holliday being injured for the first month of the season, it's an attempt for him to probably fill in, and then let's hope Jackson isn't out too long and can go back to play second base. Another player who's going to get playing time due to injury is likely Kobe Mayo. So Kobe, pretty highly touted prospect, 24 years old, hasn't really had a chance to play every day. Last year, 294 plate appearances, batted .217 with 11 home runs. He should get a chance to play third base with Jordan Westburg being out, and I'll talk about Jordan in a second. Mayo's defense is questionable, but I think he'll get a chance to play, so let's see what he can do, and let's see if he can put up numbers like he did the last part of September where he started hitting the ball really well. I think 2 players that I'm really excited about that should be hopefully break camp with the Orioles and be pretty much everyday players. One is Dylan Beavers, and we'll talk about him in the prospect section in a little bit. Beavers came up late in the year, batted .227, 4 home runs, 2 stolen bases, got on base at a .375 clip, which you gotta like. He only had 137 plate appearances, but again, we'll talk about him more in the prospect section, but there's a lot to like here about Dylan Beavers, potential Rookie of the Year candidate. And then the other, who also could be a potential Rookie of the Year candidate, is Samuel Basallo. Basallo, one of the top prospects in baseball, got a chance to play late last year, only batted .165 with 4 home runs, but 118 plate appearances. This guy has enormous power and could be a huge get for the Orioles. And again, we'll talk about him in the prospect section a little bit. But some high potential, but again, players have to produce. And these young kids that were the crop of Major League Baseball's farm systems have to produce. On the bench, I mentioned Tyler O'Neill. I mentioned Leody Taveras. He's going to be a nice outfield bench guy. get some spot starts. They also have Jeremiah Jackson, who played a utility role last year, batted got on base at 328. Only 183 plate appearances, hit 5 home runs, 447 slugging percentage. So let's see if we can replicate some of that. And then you have Ryan Mountcastle. And, there's not a lot of position flexibility with Mountcastle. He pretty much plays first base. Can you afford to keep him on your bench? I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if they move Mountcastle before the start of the season. I just don't think they're going to get a lot for him. But right now, you got to pencil Mountcastle into that batting roster of some sort. He can't be optioned in the minor leagues. He can reject it. So it's pretty much release him, trade him, or keep him on your roster. Now, when you look at the starting pitching, this is where I think the Orioles made a lot of inroads. This pitching staff, compared to last year, much, much deeper. Number one, you have Kyle Bradish, first full year removed from Tommy John surgery. He came back and pitched a little bit last year, 6 games. He pitched 32 innings, only gave up 23 hits, struck out 47 batters, and pitched to a 2.53 ERA. If that's the Bradish you're going to get, he's going to settle at the top of that rotation, and as long as he stays healthy, I'm very comfortable with him in that number 1 starting spot. His first start in spring training, his velocity was down about 2 miles an hour. It's okay. We'll be okay. It was his first spring start. Let's not go crazy over this. Let him ramp up. I'm not worried about Bradish. Trevor Rogers had Cy Young votes last year. He came from the minor leagues after a trade that the Orioles made to send Kyle Stowers to the Marlins, and we got back Trevor Rogers, and a lot of people scratched their heads. I think Mike Elias felt like he was a project that could be worked on, and last year he paid the dividends. A 181 ERA in 109 and 2/3 innings. He struck out 103 batters, and in those 109 and 2/3 innings, he only gave up 70 hits and only walked 29 batters. So if you have Bradish at 1 and Trevor Rogers replicating last year at 2, boy, you feel pretty good about that. And then you've got guys like Shane Baz, who could be a number 3 starter, and I'm very comfortable with that. I think he could end up towards the top of that rotation by year's end. 87 ERA last year, but again, his numbers behind the scenes were a lot better than that. He was a little bit unlucky. And then you have a Chris Bassett, a veteran, that pitched to a 3.96 ERA last year, 170 innings, 166 strikeouts. And that's your top 4 pitchers. That's depth. That's really good. Now you throw in a Zach Eflin, if he can be healthy again, or a Dean Kramer, who was, pitched to a 4.19 ERA last year as a 5th starter, 171 and 2/3 innings, 163 hits, 142 strikeouts. Those are 6 starting pitchers that I feel pretty good about if that top end of the rotation is performing. Not to mention that another guy who's back, he'll be in his first full season back from Tommy John surgery, is Tyler Wells. He pitched to a 2.91 ERA last year in very limited action, 21 and 2/3 innings, only 2 walks, 18 strikeouts, only 17 hits. He could be a contender for the starting rotation, or you put him in the bullpen as a long man. I think he could work himself up to either a middle reliever or setup person by the end of the year. Who knows, if Helsley doesn't work out as closer, maybe Wells ends up closing games. So I'll put Wells in the bullpen. I keep Helsley as a closer. Our setup guys, or the Orioles setup guys, are Andrew Kittredge, who pitched to a 3.40 ERA, 53 innings, 41 hits, 64 strikeouts last year. And then Keegan Aiken had a nice year for the Orioles, a 3.41 ERA, 63 1/3 innings, 54 hits, and he struck out 59 batters. So I like that, between Helsley, Kittredge, Aiken, and Wells, I feel pretty good about that. You also have Yenier Cano, who has been a really good bullpen arm for the Orioles. Had a bad year last year, 5.12 ERA, 58 innings, 62 hits, 53 strikeouts. Hopefully he can return to form a little bit. And then you've got a couple guys that you've got to fill out in your bullpen. I'll throw out 2 names. Dietrich Enns, who pitched to a 4.08 ERA in 46 1/3 innings last year. And Rico Garcia was really good for the Orioles last year. 34 1/3 innings, 31 hits, 38 strikeouts. He pitched to a 3.15 ERA. So I feel really good about the bullpen, or the starting pitching, and then the bullpen, provided 2 of those spots can be filled and you feel really good about it. Jordan Westburg has been injured throughout his career as an Oriole, and look, he's been a really good hitter when he plays. He's got a partial elbow ligament tear, and they're going to treat it with an injection in his elbow, and then they're going to reevaluate him at the end of the month of April. Look, I'm just really worried about this situation. I'm afraid it's going to be a lost year for him, and that really stinks. We'll see how he recovers, but not a ideal situation for sure. So that's the major league team. Let's talk a little bit about the minor leagues. And this is an Oriole team that's been pretty good from a prospect standpoint. If you go back to 2021, they ranked 7th in baseball in their farm system. 2022, number 4. 2003, number 1. 2023, number 1. 2024, number 1. 2025, number 17, because they graduated some players. And now they rank number 11 in Baseball America overall farm system rankings. They moved a couple guys out in trades, especially for Shane Baz, but they also signed some international prospects and have really helped develop some young players. So they're number 11, and there's some core players I want to talk about a little bit here. Number 1, these first two I've already talked about a little bit. Number 1, Orioles prospect, number 9 overall in baseball, is Samuel Basallo. 6'3", 180 pounds. He's 21 years old. You know, the Yankees lost out on him. They were going to sign him, but they lost part of their bonus pool when they signed Garrett Cole to a free agent contract. That allowed the Yankees couldn't afford him. The Orioles came in at $1.3 million, signed him in 2021, and he's an Oriole now. He started 2023 at low A ball and ended up becoming the Carolina League MVP. He earned 2 promotions, ended that year at Double A Bowie, hit 20 home runs, a 953 OPS in his age 18 season, just really good numbers. Spent most of 24 at Double A, and then produced incredible numbers as a 20-year-old at Triple A in 2025. He hit 23 home runs, a 270 average, 966 OPS at Triple A. Ended up debuting for Baltimore. They signed him to an extension, an 8-year, $67 million extension. Upside could go up to $88.5 million. But look, this guy's the real deal. Elite bat speed, generates power to all fields. He's improving at swinging at pitches that he can drive versus swinging at pitches where he can just make contact. He's got plus power. He's going to be an unbelievable slugger in this league. I truly believe that. He's got a 57.4% hard hit rate. His 90th percentile exit velocity at AAA was 108.2 miles an hour, which was actually up from 2024, where it was 106.5 miles an hour. He might stay behind the plate. He's got good arm speed to second base, under 2 seconds. It's more about improving his framing and working with pitchers. But look, he has the potential to be a middle-of-the-order bat for a long time and an all-star regardless of his position. So really good upside with Samuel Basallo. Another one that's going to hopefully break camp with the Orioles is Dylan Beavers. He's their number 2 prospect, number 21 overall in baseball. Beavers was drafted by the Orioles with the 33rd pick. He knew that he needed help with his swing, and the Orioles helped him with that swing. He was the International League MVP last year thanks to a 304 average, 18 home runs, 934 OPS. This guy has great contact, gets on base a lot. He doesn't swing and miss often. He has an above average hit tool, plus speed, solid average overall defense. He could be a very solid, average, everyday major league player who absolutely, one of these two guys could be Rookie of the Year this year. So excited about Dylan Beavers. The Orioles' number 3 prospect and number 72 overall is Trey Gibson, a right-hand pitcher. He's 6'5", 230 pounds. He's 23 years old. Incredibly, he signed with the Orioles as an undrafted free agent and absolutely broke out in 2025. He struck out 40.4% of the batters he faced in high A ball, and then 32.5% of the batters he faced in Double A. He then finished the year at Triple A Norfolk. Over those 3 levels, he struck out a total of 166 batters with a 121 whip and a 4.26 ERA. That sounds elevated, but his FIP was 3.34. That takes out fielding and so forth and gives you a more true reflection of ERA. So he earned the organizational pitcher of the year last year. He's got a sinker with some unique angles that he throws it at. He's got a pair of mid-90s fastballs, high upside in his secondary pitch mix. He added a death ball slider with really tight downward break in the mid-80s. He's got a plus mid-80s sweeper, a plus low 80s curveball. He has the potential to be a mid-rotation starter and should make his debut at some time in Baltimore in 2026. Now, Nate George is another interesting prospect, fourth for the Orioles, 86th overall in baseball. He's 19 years old, 6 foot, 200 pounds. Again, just 19, still developing. He was drafted in the 16th round, and the Orioles threw money at him to lure him away from Northwest Florida State Junior College. And, he dominated the Florida Complex League, went to low A ball, ended at high A ball. He produced a 337 average, 896 OPS across 3 levels, stole 50 bases, did get caught 33% of the time, though, but he's got good contact ability. One of the best seasons of any teenager last year in minor league baseball. Above average hitter with some fringe power, but he gets out of the box really fast. So as long as he puts the ball in play, he is a sub 4-second runner from home plate to first base. He's got double plus speed. He'll do well in the outfield. He's got the makings of an elite center fielder. Very high floor on him with a physical ability and some more seasoning at the plate. Could be a center fielder with multiple all-star appearances. That's how Baseball America sees it. So excited to see him. Again, only 19 years old. The Orioles' 5th best prospect, number 95 overall in baseball, is Luis De Leon. He's a 22-year-old, 6'3", 168 pounds. Look, he signed just for $30,000 as an 18-year-old out of the Dominican Republic. That was during the 21 signing period. But in 2025, he carried in a 1.80 ERA with 65 strikeouts in 45 innings over his last 9 starts between high A ball and double A ball. So, he's got a 4-seam fastball and a 2-seamer. Both sit 95 to 98 miles an hour. He induces a lot of weak contact. He's a ground ball pitcher, a lot of ground ball. He's got this plus gyro slider in the mid-80s. He's got an emerging 80-mile-an-hour splitter, or it sits in the 80s, I should say. Secondaries have always impressed. His command's been a little inconsistent. He needs to work on that. Here's an interesting thing. Over 87 1/3 innings last year, he didn't allow a single home run. So mid-rotation starter potential feels realistic. Let's see how he develops. Again, he's 22 years old. Not saying he'll be in Baltimore this year, but let's see how he develops. I also want to talk about one other player, and that's Enrique Bradfield. He's an outfielder, 6'1", 170 pounds. He's 24 years old now. Look, the Orioles drafted him as the 17th pick in 2023. Just unbelievable athlete. He's a minor league Gold Glove winner. Just absolute, if you look at his fielding ratings, his scouting grades, he grades out as an 80 as a fielder, an 80 as a runner. He stole 72 bases between high A Aberdeen and double A Bowie. He had a couple hamstring injuries last year that hampered him. He makes contact, rarely strikes out, focuses on pitches he can drive and hitting the ball over the infield. He cut his ground ball rate from 50% in 24 to 43% in 25. He uses his speed to drive the ball and then get extra bases on those gap hits. He's developed nicely. He's got the defense. He's got the speed. I would be surprised if he doesn't make his major league debut this year. And I think there's some high upside here, but can he hit in the majors? I mean, he grades out as a 50 hit-wise. He's not a power guy. He grades out as a 30 on power. But again, a center fielder that could play unbelievable defense. He doesn't have the best arm, I will say that. He grades out at a 45 on his arm. So I think those are some intriguing prospects. If you look also what the Orioles did on the international side this January, they've been very active and had an unbelievable January, signing these international prospects at the deadline. They signed the number 14 prospect, Jose Luis Acevedo, signed him for $2.3 million. He's a shortstop out of the Dominican. All these guys are only 17, so it's all about potential. But 6'1", 164 pounds, see how the Orioles can develop him. They signed the number 18 prospect, Ariel Roque, for $1.7 million. He's an outfielder out of the Dominican, 17 years old, 6 foot, 190 pounds. He's a left-handed hitter, signed him for $1.7 million. They signed one of the, if not the best pitching prospect in the class, and that's Andre Hidalgo. He was the number 25 prospect this year. He's a left-handed pitcher from the Dominican again, only 16 years old. He's a lefty, 6'4", 194. Yeah, 6'4", 194 is a 16-year-old, by the way. He signed for $625,000. A lot of times these pitchers sign for less because there's a lot more risk with them. A lot of them don't pan out, but good to see the Orioles making a headway there with a guy like Hidalgo. Then they had the number 35 prospect and Pedro Gomez, signed him for $1.25 million out of the Dominican. He's an outfielder. And then the first prospect, Gabriel Rosario, they signed him for just over $1 million. He's an outfielder, first baseman, another left-handed hitter. So really good development of players, fill in that minor league system again with international and draft talent. So good things for the Orioles there. Now, what if the season doesn't work out the way they planned? I think the Orioles do have some players that if things go south and these players have a good year, they have tradable assets to help even bring up that farm system even more. I think it's, some of the players, Chris Bassett, for example, signed a one-year deal for $18.5 million. He's a free agent in 27. Given his age, he is now 37 years old. I think that if the Orioles fall out of contention and he has a good year, he is a good trade candidate. I think that Trevor Rogers is an excellent trade candidate. Trevor is being paid only $6.2 million this year, and then he's a free agent. If he replicates what he did last year, or even comes close to it, and the Orioles fall out of contention, he will be a well sought-after left-handed arm. So, again, some good trade asset there. Taylor Ward was traded to the Orioles. He's on a one-year deal. He's a free agent after this year. $12.175 million is his contract this year. If he continues to hit home runs and the Orioles fall out of contention, he could be movable. Couple of bullpen arms. Ryan Helsley is signed for $14 million this year, has a player option for $14 million next year. Might be a little less attractive to teams knowing that the player can opt in for next year, but again, if he shows his pre-25 form, he could be a trade asset. Andrew Kittredge is a good bullpen arm, signed for $9 million this year, free agent after this year. If he pitches well and the Orioles fall out of contention, I think he could be a good trade asset. I'll also throw Keegan Aiken in there. He's a free agent after this year. He's on a $2.975 million contract, so he is a trade asset, I believe. Again, all of these assume the Orioles fall out of contention, but these players pitch and play well. Little more questionable, Zach Eflin. He's paid $8 million this year, a $25 million mutual option next year, or for 27. I think it's really smart for the Orioles. If he does well and you want to sign him back next year, great. If not, you can part ways with him. And if he pitches well but the Orioles aren't playing well, you could always trade him, and the recipient doesn't necessarily have to pick up that option. So I'm just a little more concerned about his level of production this year. And then Ryan Mountcastle, again, I think if he's going to be traded, it's going to be before opening day, or the Orioles might release him. I don't know. He's owed $2.5 million this year. He's got a club option of $3.5 million for next year. So, we'll see what happens with Mountcastle. But that's it. That's the Baltimore Orioles. When I look at these two teams, the Devil Rays and the Orioles, both in the same division, and I think about my pyramid, I think the Rays have a lot of challenges. I think their lineup, while they have some good hitters, they also have some big holes. I think their bullpen's good, but their starting rotation has a lot of risk. I probably see them in that bottom tier of 10 teams. Maybe could sneak into the fourth tier of 8 teams, but they're definitely on the lower side for me. I think the Orioles could fall into that, third tier of potential playoff teams, or maybe that fourth tier, which is just on the outside looking in. Injuries can hurt, but you've got to have the players to back it up. So that's it for my Orioles and Rays preview for 2026. So thank you all again for joining me. Enjoyed going over the Rays and especially the Orioles. I'm a homer. Appreciate you listening. Again, make sure, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, make sure you just go into YouTube, go into Spotify, go into Apple Podcasts. Just subscribe, and subscribe. That would be great. Leave me comments. Give me a thumbs up if you like the podcast. I would really appreciate that. It means a lot. And then follow me, if you would, on my social media channels. It's at TellUsEllisHQ. Follow me on X. Follow me on Spotify. And then if you have questions, want to send me an email, want to talk, be part of the show, just email me, jamie@tellusellis.com. So until next time, I really appreciate it, and I will see you soon.